Hi, it's Dwyer. It is the day after the draw. Mario Barrios successfully defends his title against Manny Pacquiao. Let's talk about that fight, but first remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Just imagine Alexander Usyk. He's 38-ish, in great shape, has kept himself in great shape as he's gotten older. Just imagine him 8 years from now, almost a decade from now, 8 years from now, coming back after a multi-year absence from the sport of boxing, right? More than 3 years. And imagine him then taking on a reigning champion at his weight class and being able to not only go the distance against that reigning champion, but to also get a draw, to give as good as he got. Folks, that's what Manny Pacquiao just did. Let me also say, too, here in videos I use a phrase. I say, future Hall of Famer. Understand, in this case, there's no speculation. Manny Pacquiao is actually in the Hall of Fame. We're talking about a guy who's been out of the sport so long, he qualified for actual Hall of Fame induction. So just imagine, after his induction, he comes back, no lead-in fight. He says, you know what, let me take a young guy who is more than a decade and a half younger than him. Let me fight this champion. And then he ends up going the distance. Folks, that by itself is impressive. The fact that many people out there right now, Paulie Malignaggi, Rolly Romero, one of the other champions, believe that he won the fight is just another level of disbelief. What just happened, folks? Remember the moment, because this is a moment in time. Now, I bet this fight early. I had Manny. As I believe my premium subscribers know, I had Manny to win. Folks, he was a huge underdog. He wasn't given a 40% chance of winning that fight. That would have been a plus 150. No, I got him at a plus 265. Here, by the way, is how you know whether your casino is worthwhile or not. Right? The good casinos with the right terms declared this fight a push and gave you your money back. Sketchier casinos might have said, hey player, we had a draw prop here. Your bet wasn't for the draw, which happened. Right? This isn't a push. We're keeping your money. Right? So take a look around, look at your casino, see how they treated your bet if you were on the Manny Pacquiao side of the play. Now, I've said this a million times. Let's make it 1,000,001. You have to beat the champ to take his title. If it is a photo finish, if you're using words like, oh, I think this fighter eked it out. You know, if you're using the word close, you say, hey, it was close, but I thought this challenger pulled it out. Right? If you're using words like eked and pulled it out and close, folks, the champ retains his title. Now, while I would have rather had the plus 265 on Pacquiao winning, while that's a more compelling story, right, at 46, let me just say I'm privately glad that Pacquiao wasn't awarded the decision on this fight. Right? You know, being a champion comes with some benefits. it comes with some advantages. Right? If you're the incumbent, you get those advantages. The current title holder. Now let me say, Pac looked good. He still had the head movement. Importantly, he still had the legs. You know what they say? The legs are the first to go. He still had the legs. And he's past the midway point of his 40s. He still had the aggression. Make no mistake, Pacquiao's not here to survive and stay outside. You know, he's not trying to get some moral victory here. No, against the much younger champ, he's bouncing around. He's trying to get inside. He still had the aggression. Most importantly, he had the timing. This wasn't the older fighter who looks out of sync. No, Pacquiao is moving well, and then he's throwing power shots, and he's coordinated. Right, folks? He looked good. Right? You could tell he'd been out of the ring for a little bit. The head movement wasn't quite as herky-jerky. Right? Father Time slows down even freak athletes like Manny Pacquiao. But you got the feeling that Pacquiao's punches had more power on them. Right? Power than Mario Barrios' punches. But, and there is a but here. And let me say, the Terence Crawford crowd needs to think about this but for their upcoming fight against Canelo. But Pacquiao, as good as he looked, and he looked good, could not dampen champion Mario Barrios' volume. And Barrios, who fought a very savvy fight, maintained that volume with his jab. Right? Understand, too, the jab was a constant thorn in Manny's side. Manny, who at times would jump inside, wasn't able to dampen the jab. He could not smother it. Barrios is able to throw that jab from start to finish. So let's talk about the math, but before I do, let's talk about the mindset. This is what allowed Barrios to keep his title. Barrios is fighting a guy in his mid-40s, right? On the back half of his 40s, right? 46. Barrios, who's an action fighter, does not come into the fight thinking, hey, I'm going to teach this old man a lesson. And that lesson is that boxing is still a young man's game. He doesn't come in and say, hey, I can't let this old man get any ideas about possibly being able to beat me. Let me try to take him out. Let me hit him with some big shots early. Let me hurt him. Let me treat him like he's a senior citizen who has not had an official boxing match for years. Understand, too, the benchmark. Orgenis Ugas beat Manny Pacquiao. Mario Barrios beat Ugas. Right? So Barrios, would come in. This is how some people would have thought. Barrios would come in with the idea of, hey, I've already beaten the last man to beat Manny Pacquiao. Right? Let me show the world here that I can blow out Pac-Man. Folks, that's not the mindset here. Mario Barrios, who is throwing volume, right? We'll get into the numbers here. He is throwing volume. But understand, he comes in and he's cautious. Right? He knows where to find Pacquiao because Pacquiao's right in front of him. Pacquiao's not running. Pacquiao's not back foot. Pacquiao's bouncing around and he's ready to get in the pocket. Right? Barrios doesn't return that level of fire. Believe it or not, the younger man, the guy who's more than a decade and a half younger, comes in and is content to throw a jab. Right? He understands. Power is the last to go. Pacquiao, in his heyday, was one of the hardest hitting fighters. This is the secret to Manny Pacquiao, besides blinding hand speed and great movement. He's one of the hardest hitting fighters in the entire sport. Let me point out, pound for pound, let me point out that that's one of the secrets with Canelo. Right? Pacquiao has a punch. Folks, Mario Barrios isn't taking chances. So he's shooting a jab. The kicker is that Mario Barrios is the existing champion. He's done the math and he's figured out if he can match a challenger, because that's who Pacquiao is, whatever is past, whatever HOF, Hall of Fame designation he already has, right? You know, the fact that Barrios is fighting the Hall of Famer doesn't change the fact that it's Barrios' title at stake. So let's go through the numbers. Just understand that Mario Barrios, again, he's an action fighter. It's a 12-round fight. Folks, he throws 658 punches in this fight. Folks, if he threw 50 punches around, 50, he would be at the 600 mark. Against Manny Pacquiao, he throws more than that. He throws 658 punches. How does he avoid a free-for-all? It's because 423 of the punches he throws are jabs. Let me say, too, if you're looking for a sign of age on Manny Pacquiao, it should be the fact that some of these jabs hit him flush. In other words, his reflexes have dimmed just enough where some of Barrios' shots were getting through. So, Barrios, 423 jabs. He lands 10.6% of them. Right? So he lands 45 jabs over the 12 rounds. Pacquiao, the challenger, is out-jabbed. Pacquiao throws 318 jabs. Folks, that's more than 100 less than Barrios has thrown. Right? Think about it. That's on average a little bit more than 8 fewer jabs per round that Pacquiao's throwing. And Pacquiao, because Barrios is outside and maintaining distance with his jab, Pacquiao only lands 6.3% of them. He only lands 20 for the entire fight. Pacquiao lands 20 jabs. Barrios lands 45. More than twice the number of jabs that Pacquiao lands. Now, it is true that Pacquiao lands more power shots. But here's where the visual matters. Barrios isn't staggered in the fight. Right? There's no round like the infamous round involving Usyk and Fury in their first fight. Right? Pacquiao doesn't get the wow moment. Barrios never hits the canvas. Barrios isn't holding on to survive the closing seconds of a round. No, Mario Barrios has great body language. He's competing against a Hall of Famer. He has the superior volume, or at least is matching the Hall of Famer's volume. He doesn't get hurt in the moment. You're not thinking, oh, Manny's landing more power shots. Barrios' face is not completely swollen as it is at the end of the Abel Ramos fight. Mario Barrios goes the distance. In fact, he closes stronger than Pacquiao. And most importantly, Mario Barrios is the reigning champion. You add it all up, and we want credibility in boxing, right? You add it all up, and Manny Pacquiao didn't do enough to take Mario Barrios' title. In other words, Rolly Romero gave an interview after the fight, and he says, I thought Manny won. But then he continues, and he says, but I thought it was close. Folks, when it's close like this, and the champion had superior volume, neither fighter is badly staggered. The champion isn't running away from Manny Pacquiao. There are no standing eights. No guy is badly cut with blood gushing and a panicked corner. Both guys look cool, calm, collected, and experienced. In a fight like this, even with money on Manny Pacquiao at plus 265, think about how preposterous that is. Right? Plus 265. I have no problem with this fight being declared a draw. In fact, it's a tantalizing outcome because it validates both fighters. Right? Mario Barrios has now fought Manny Pacquiao. He survived Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao is a Hall of Famer already. Right? The feeling is that Pacquiao came in and looked credible, fighting an existing world champion. Right? From the Pacquiao side of the ledger, this gets really interesting because, folks, you now have a bonfire, literally a bonfire, at 147 pounds. What do we really know about Brian Norman? Right, let me say too, that Norman has a great left hook. Right, it's a great left hook. Who lands left hooks on Manny Pacquiao? Right, understand, Pacquiao's a southpaw. When Pacquiao comes inside, your left hook is on Pacquiao's right side, his jab hand. Also, Mario Barrios, 30. Brian Norman, younger than that. Is he ready for Pacquiao's suddenness? Pacquiao's still sudden. Right? Rolly Romero. I'll say this about Romero. He's a cool customer. Right? He's a guy who's already fought Gervonta Davis. Did not look afraid of Gervonta Davis. He's already fought Ryan Garcia. Did not look afraid of Ryan Garcia. Right? Ramiro's been knocked out. Ramiro's been knocked down. Right? I thought he was losing the Ishmael Barrazo fight. Take a look at that fight. And he kept his cool. Right? He's a cool customer. More importantly, he doesn't throw the kind of jab that Mario Barrios throws. Right? Ramiro would want a shootout with Manny Pacquiao. Right? That's an interesting fight. You have Teofimo Lopez. What's the problem Teofimo has? Folks, it's with southpaws. The Jermaine Ortiz fight. The Sander Martin fight. Right? How does he deal with Manny Pacquiao? You have Devin Haney now at 147. Understand, Devin Haney is a guy who moves a lot, has great legs. Right? Is it possible that a guy who's 46 years old, who throughout his career has had some of the best legs in the sport, might be able to follow Haney around the ring and give him nowhere to hide? Ryan Garcia, great left hook, tall guy, but defensively vulnerable, impatient, starts throwing that left hook extremely early in fights, isn't going to have Mario Barrios' patience in terms of setting up a jab, making sure he offsets whatever volume Manny Pacquiao has, not getting lured into a firefight, maintaining distance in the fight. Folks, that's not Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia is trying to hit home runs. Who hits harder? Ryan Garcia, great left hook, or Manny Pacquiao, great straight left? So, folks, I know it's shocking to say this, and I'm someone who, for a while here online, has been saying that I believe boxing's actually a skill game, not a brute strength game. It's a craft. I believe if these older fighters are healthy, if they've kept themselves in shape, and I'm a skeptic on the Ricky Hatton comeback, right? Fighters like Hatton, Roberto Duran's another one, they yo-yo in weight. But then there is that other group of fighter, right? The Ray Leonard, who even when he had an attached retina, was still hitting the gym. Right? I saw an interview with Michael Spinks where he talked about how he was bored one day, so we decided to go to a gym. Right? Fighters with that mindset. Right? The guys who are the athletic type guys. It's clear, just looking at Manny, that Manny, who plays basketball and other sports, is still doing that. Right? I haven't seen Manny Pacquiao walking around with a gut. Right? Manny doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who lets himself get out of shape. I believe fighters like that, the older fighter who is in shape, hits the gym, right? You know, has a punch. Because understand, power is the last to go. Has decent defense, has some construct. With Manny, you know, he bounces around, he moves his head. He's hard to find in the ring. He's a shorter fighter. He's hard to find in the ring. Fighters like that can fight a long time if they pick the right opponents. Right? You know, Canelo, great defense. Big punch. Right? I get the feeling, not the best legs at this age. But I get the feeling that if Canelo is matched against a slower moving guy, A guy who's not going to get on his toes and dance all over the ring. Right? If Canelo is fighting a guy who's not a dancer, who's not a mover, who's going to be somewhat pocket-centric, why can't Canelo fight another 5 years if he wants? Right? He's not taking that much punishment. He has good punch resistance. Well, folks, Manny Pacquiao, let's shock things. I know Pacquiao wants a rematch against Barrios. Think about that. A 46-year-old who's just gone 12 rounds with a champion in his prime wants another shot at that champion. Talk about competitive spirit, right? He doesn't want to fight for easy paydays. Who's the top guy? Get me the rematch, is the idea. Manny Pacquiao has a long runway ahead of him if he wants it. Right? Could you imagine being Mario Barrios here? Again, Barrios earlier in his career fought Gervonta Davis. He fought Ugas. He's now fighting Manny Pacquiao. By the second round, the crowd was chanting, Manny, Manny. You know, if you're Barrios, you're thinking, gee, what does... I'm the champ. What does a champ have to do to get the crowd on his side? Folks, Manny is a box office king. His fights are going to be financially viable. He's shown you by getting a draw against Mario Barrios that he's competitive. Jaron Ennis, who does move, right? Jaron Ennis has left the division. Pacquiao now has a shot, quite frankly, against guys who view themselves as sluggers. He's faced one of the better jabs in the division. Now he's going to possibly face a Raleigh Romero, who's a slugger. Doesn't have Mario Barrios' jab. Doesn't have the reach of a Mario Barrios, right? Barrios is a tall guy for 147. Right? Just understand, there are fights out there Manny Pacquiao could have. That'll be interesting. Ryan Garcia doesn't have the legs to move away from Manny Pacquiao. Right? You know Ryan Garcia is going to be in there trying to land a big left hook. Manny Pacquiao knows it. Right? Folks, that's a box office fight if the fighters want it. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. Let's just say, financially, I would have preferred Manny Pacquiao winning the fight. As the fight unfolded, it was clear, to me at least, that he couldn't dampen Barrios' jab. And champions get the nod in fights like this. Right? It was interesting. You went to the scorecards. You thought it was competitive. Folks, Manny Pacquiao did not win any of the three judges' scorecards. Right? Again, the Terence Crawford crowd needs to think about that. Right? The only judge who had a winner had Mario Barrios winning the fight. Also, it's a peril of being 46. Right? Manny looked like he may have had the fight in hand. He needed to close in the 11th and 12th. And he took his foot off the gas. The question for all of us is whether that was out of necessity. Right? I used to play basketball. I'd be the old man on the court. By the way, I'm so old, this was years ago. Right? This was years ago. And I could tell you I'd be bluffing at the end of games. Right? Some young guy would run me ragged. I knew I couldn't keep up with him. So if the ball was over on the other side of the court, I was like, man, I'm not running over to this dude. You know, I was huffing and puffing. I couldn't look tired. So I remember breathing heavily through my nose because I didn't want people to see me breathing heavily through my mouth. Right, folks? Why did Manny slow down at the end of the fight? He has a poker face. Was it fatigue? Or was it, I got this? Pacquiao claims he was ahead 8-4. On these CompuBox numbers, he's kidding himself. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.